This is my first ASMR video. I've never made one before. I didn't really make a script or anything in regards to what I'm going to say. I don't know if most people who make ASMR videos do that kind of thing where they make scripts. I think some do, such as Ephemeral Rift. I'm pretty sure he does some sort of script writing. Yeah. So, before I start reading, I'd like to share with you a new shirt that I got. I'm wearing it right now. Yeah, it's Daft Punk, one of my favorite bands. I love electronic music. I'm also a big fan of other genres besides electronic music. I like metal a lot. I like psychedelic rock a lot. A lot of things, actually. Okay. This book I got at the library today at my high school, and it is called The Cosmic Connection, an Extraterrestrial Perspective. It is by the one and only Carl Sagan. Here's a picture of him on the back right here. I don't really know too much about Carl Sagan, but I'm pretty sure he has or had a TV show way back in the day, like the 70s, I think. I remember watching one video of his specifically which talked about the fourth dimension, which I found really interesting, but I don't really know all that much what the fourth dimension is exactly, but I find the idea of multi-dimensional realities to be very interesting, you know. Okay. Hear that nice little crackle. It's a nice little picture on the front. Another picture. Preface. I don't know if I'll be reading all of the first chapter, depending on how long it is, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably stop the video whenever I feel like it, you know. Preface. When I was 12, my grandfather asked me, through a translator, he had never learned much English, what I wanted to be when I grew up. I answered, an astronomer, which, after a while, was also translated, yes, he replied, but how will you make a living? I had supposed that, like all the adult men I knew, I would be consigned to a dull, repetitive, and uncreative job. Astronomy would be done on weekends. It was not until my second year in high school that I discovered that some astronomers were paid to pursue their passion. I was overwhelmed with joy. I could pursue my interests full time. Even today, there are moments when what I do seems to me like an improbable, if unusually pleasant dream. To be involved in the exploration of Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, to try to duplicate the steps that led to the origin of life 4 billion years ago on an Earth very different from the one we know, to land instruments on Mars to search there for life, and perhaps to be engaged in a serious effort to communicate with other intelligent beings, if such there be, out there in the dark of the night sky. Had I been born 50 years earlier, I could have pursued none of these activities. They were then all figments of the speculative imagination. I like that word. It sounds nice. Speculative. 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 Imagination. Had I been born 50 years later, I also could not have been involved in these efforts, except possibly the last, because 50 years from now, the preliminary reconnaissance of the solar system, the search for life on Mars, and the study of the origin of life will have been completed. I think myself extraordinarily fortunate to be alive at the one moment in the history of mankind when such ventures are being undertaken. So when Jerome Agel approached me about doing a popular book to try to communicate my sense of the excitement and importance of these adventures, I was amenable, even though his suggestion came just before the Mariner 9 mission to Mars, which I knew would occupy most of my walking hours for many months. At a later time, after discussing communication with extraterrestrial intelligence, just lost my spot. Okay. Angel and I had dinner in the Polynesian restaurant in Boston. My fortunate cookie announced, "You will shortly be called upon to decipher an important message." Ooh, I like that. This is getting interesting. This seemed a good omen. After centuries of muddy surmise, unfettered speculation, stodgy conservatism, and unimaginative disinterest, the subject of extraterrestrial life has finally come of age. It has now reached a practical stage where it can be pursued by rigorous scientific techniques, where it has achieved scientific respectability, and where its significance is widely understood. Extraterrestrial life is an idea whose time has come. The book is divided into 3 major sections. In the first part, I tried in several ways to convey a sense of cosmic perspective, living out our lives on a tiny hunk of rock and metal, circling at one of 250 billion stars that make up our galaxy in a universe of billions of galaxies. The deflation of some of our more common conceits is one of the practical applications of astronomy. The second part of the book is concerned with various aspects of our solar system, mostly with Earth, Mars, and Venus. Some of the results and implications of Mariner 9 can be found here. Part 3 is devoted to the possibility of communicating with extraterrestrial intelligence on planets of other stars. Since no such contact has yet been made, our efforts to date have been feeble. This section is necessarily speculative. I have not hesitated to speculate within what I perceive to be the bounds of scientific plausibility, and, although I am not by training a philosopher or sociologist or historian, I have not hesitated to draw philosophical or social or historical implications of astronomy and space exploration. I actually find astronomy very interesting myself. I was born in July, so my sun's sign is a Cancer, and my moon sign is a Libra. Yeah, my rising sign is an Aries. So, any astrologists out there who are interested in astronomy, you know the fundamentals of what makes up me now, so I guess you can get a good idea of who I am. The astronomical discoveries we are in the midst of making are of the broadest human significance. If this book plays a small role in broadening public consideration of these exploratory ventures, it will have served its purpose. As with all ongoing work, and especially all speculative subjects, some of the statements in these pages will elicit vigorous demurs. There are other books with other opinions. Reasoned disputation is the lifeblood of science, as is sadly infrequently the case in the intellectually more anemic arena of politics. There are other books with others' opinions. Reasoned disputation is the lifeblood of science. Reasoned disputation. But I believe that the more controversial opinions expressed here have nevertheless a significant scientific consistency. I have purposely introduced the same concept in slightly different contexts in a few places where I felt the discussion required it. The book is carefully structured, but for the reader who wishes to browse ahead, most chapters are self-contained. There are far too many who helped shape my opinions on these subjects for me to thank them all here, but in rereading these chapters, I find I owe a special debt to Joseph Vaverka and Frank Drake, both of Cornell University, with past few years, I have discussed so many aspects of this volume. The book was composed partly during a very long transcontinental trip in a very short automobile. I thank Linda and Nicholas for their encouragement and patience. I am also grateful to Linda for drawing 2 handsome humans and 1 elegant unicorn. I like that. And I am grateful to the late Moritz Escher for permission to reproduce his Another World, and to Robert McIntyre for the human figure in Starfield in Part 3. John Lomberg's paintings and drawings have been a source of intellectual and aesthetic excitement for me, and I am grateful to him for producing many of them, especially for this book. Herman Eckelmann's careful photographic reproductions of Lomberg's work have facilitated their appearance in this book, and I thank Jerome Achel, without whose time and persistence this book would never have been written. I am indebted to John Noggle of NASA for showing me his file in public response to the Pioneer 10 plaque. The Oregon System of Higher Education for permission to reproduce some ideas from my book, Planetary Exploration, the Forum for Contemporary History in Santa Barbara, for permission to reproduce a portion of my letter distributed by the Forum in January 1973, and Cornell University Press for permission to reprint a fraction of my chapters, The Extraterrestrial and Other Hypotheses, from UFOs, a Scientific Debate, edited by Carl Sagan and Thornton Page, Cornell University Press, 1972. I am also grateful to those who have granted me permission to reproduce in Chapter 4 their remarks on the Pioneer 10 plaque. The evolution of this book through many drafts owes so much to the technical skills of Joanne Cohen, and especially Mary Sisminsky. Oh, I'm actually already getting kind of tired. My eyes are getting a little droopy. Trying to get that image clear so you can see what it is. I'm not too sure what the image is myself. Part 1. Cosmic Perspectives. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started, and know the place for the first time, when the tongues of flame are enfolded into the crown knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one. Screwed up a little bit. A transitional animal. 5 billion years ago, when the sun turned on, the solar system was transformed from inky blackness to a flood of light. In the inner parts of the solar system, the early planets were irregular collections of rock and metal, the debris, the minor constituents of the initial cloud, the material that had not been blown away after the sun ignited. These planets, heated as they formed, gases trapped in their interiors were exuded to form atmospheres. Their surfaces melted. Volcanoes were common. This reminds me of this one cartoon I used to watch a lot when I was a kid called Fantasia. And there's this one section within the movie which kind of, in a way, it like goes through time basically. So it starts off where there was just bacteria and other things, and those bacteria evolve into fish, and those fish eventually evolve into amphibians, and then into reptiles, and into dinosaurs, and then the extinction of the dinosaurs. I can't remember what happens after that, but it's a really good movie. Super trippy, too. Where was I? The earlier atmospheres were composed of the most abundant atoms and were rich in hydrogen. Sunlight falling on the molecules of the earlier atmosphere excited them, induced molecular collisions, and produced larger molecules. Under the inexorable laws of chemistry and physics, these molecules interacted, fell into the oceans, and further developed to produce larger molecules. Molecules much more complex than the initial atoms of which they had formed, but still microscopic by any human standard. These molecules, remarkably enough, are the ones of which we are made, the building blocks of the nucleic acids, which are our hereditary material, and the building blocks of the proteins. The molecular journeymen that perform the work of the cell were produced from the atmosphere and oceans of the early Earth. We know this because we can make these molecules today by duplicating the primitive conditions. Eventually, many billions of years ago, a molecule was formed that had a remarkable capability. It was able to produce out of the molecular building blocks of the surrounding. These are thick pages. Waters. A fairly accurate copy of itself in such a molecular system. There is a set of instructions, a molecular code containing the sequence of building blocks from which the larger molecule is constructed. When by accident there is a change in the sequence, the copy is likewise changed. Such a molecular system, capable of replication, mutation, and replication of its mutations, can be called alive. It is a collection of molecules that can evolve by natural selection. Those molecules able to replicate faster or to reprocess building blocks from their surroundings into a more useful variety, reproduced more efficiently than their competitors and eventually dominated. But conditions gradually changed. Hydrogen escaped to space. Production of the molecular building blocks declined. The foodstuffs, formerly available in great abundance, dwindled. Life was expelled from the molecular Garden of Eden. Only those simple collections of molecules able to transform their surroundings, able to produce efficient molecular machines for the conversion of simple into complex molecules, were able to survive by isolating themselves from the surroundings, by maintaining their earlier idyllic conditions. Those molecules that surrounded themselves by membranes had an advantage. The first cells arose. With molecular building blocks no longer available for organisms had to work hard to make such building blocks. Plants are the result. Plants start with air and water, minerals and sunlight, and produce molecular building blocks of high complexity. Animals, such as human beings, are parasites on the plants. True, we are basically parasites on a lot of things, really. Changing climate and competition among what was now a wide diversity of organisms produced greater and greater specialization, a sophistication of function, and an elaboration of form. A rich array of plants and animals began to cover the earth. Out of the initial oceans in which life arose, new environments such as the land and the air were colonized. Organisms now live from the top of Mount Everest to the deepest portions of the abyssal depths. Organisms live in hot, concentrated solutions of sulfuric acid and in dry Antarctic valleys. Organisms live on the water, absorbed on a single crystal of salt. Life forms developed that were finely attuned to their specific environments, exquisitely adapted to their conditions, but the conditions changed. The organisms were too specialized. They died. Other organisms were less well adapted, but they were more generalized. The conditions changed, the climate varied, but organisms were able to continue. Many more species of organisms have died during the history of the earth than are alive today. The secret of evolution is time and death. Among the adaptations that seem to be useful is one that we call intelligence. Intelligence is an extension of an evolutionary tendency apparent in the simplest organisms, the tendency toward control of the environment. The standby biological method of control has been the hereditary material. Information passed on by nucleic acids from generation to generation. Information on how to build a nest. Information on the fear of snakes soar over the desk. Over the dark. No. The desk. Information on how to fly south for the winter, but intelligence requires information of an adaptive quality developed during the lifetime of a single individual. A variety of organisms on the earth today have this quality we call intelligence. The dolphins have it, and so do the great apes, but it is most evident in the organism called man. That's you, that's me. In man, not only is adaptive information acquired in the lifetime of a single individual, but it is passed on extra genetically through learning, through books, through education. It is this, more than anything else, that has raised man to his present preeminent status on the planet Earth. We are the product of 4.5 billion years of fortuitous, slow biological evolution. There is no reason to think that the evolutionary process has stopped. Man is a transitional animal. He is not the climax of creation. I think we need to learn that. We are not the climax of creation. The Earth and the Sun have life expectancies of many more billions of years. The future development of man will likely be a cooperative arrangement among controlled biological evolution, genetic engineering, and an intimate partnership between organisms and intelligent machines. My contacts are messing with me so badly right now. Okay, continue on. But no one is in a position to make accurate predictions of this future evolution. All that is clear is that we cannot remain static. In our earliest history, so far as we can tell, individuals held an allegiance toward their immediate tribal group, which may have numbered no more than 10 or 20 individuals, all of whom were related by consanguinity. I don't even know what that word means, so I should look that up. I'm going to underline that really quickly. Consanguinity. 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 As time went on, the need for cooperative behavior in the hunting of large animals or large herds, and agriculture, and in the development of cities, forced human beings into larger and larger groups. The group that was identified with the tribal unit enlarged at each stage of this evolution. Today, a particular instant in the 4.5 billion year history of Earth and in the several million year history of mankind, most human beings owe their primary allegiance to the nation state, although some of the most dangerous political problems still arise from tribal conflicts involving smaller population units. Agreed. Many visionary leaders have imagined a time when the allegiance of an individual human being is not to his particular nation state, religion, race, or economic group, but to mankind as a whole, when the benefit to a human being of another sex, race, religion, or political persuasion 10,000 miles away is as precious to us as to our neighbor or our brother. The trend is in this direction, but it is agonizingly slow. There is a serious question whether such a global self-identification of mankind can be achieved before we destroy ourselves with the technological forces our intelligence has unleashed. Wow. Totally agree with all that. Very powerful. In a very real sense, human beings are machines constructed by the nucleic acids to arrange for the efficient replication of more nucleic acids. In a sense, our strongest urges, noblest enterprises, most compelling necessities, and apparent free wills are all an expression of the information coded in the genetic material. We are, in a way, temporary, ambulatory repositories for our nucleic acids. This does not deny our humanity. It does not prevent us from pursuing the good, the true. The screen went black for a second. Kind of freaked me out. This does not deny our humanity. It does not prevent us from pursuing the good, the true, and the beautiful. But it would be a great mistake to ignore where we have come from in our attempt to determine where we are going. That's true in a lot of ways. notice some similarities which I find very interesting. I could probably rant on that for like an hour probably, but I think I'll probably save that for another video. There is no doubt that our instinctual apparatus has changed a little from the hunter-gatherer days of several 100,000 years ago. Our society has changed enormously from those times, and the greatest problems of survival in the contemporary world can be understood in terms of this conflict between what we feel we must do because of our primeval instincts and what we know we must do because of our extragenetic learning. If we survive these perilous times, it is clear that even an identification with all of mankind is not the ultimate desirable identification. If we have a profound respect for other human beings as co-equal recipients of this precious patrimony of 4.5 billion years of evolution, why should the identification not apply also to all the other organisms on Earth, which are equally the product of 4.5 billion years of evolution? Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. We care for a small fraction of the organisms on Earth, dogs, cats, and cows, for example, because they are useful or because they flatter us. But spiders and salamanders, salmon and sunflowers are equally our brothers and sisters. We are all one, everybody. Separation is an illusion. My friend actually she wanted me to watch this documentary, and it was about, I watched like the first 15 minutes of it, but I was watching it like 2 in the morning, so I fell asleep. But I do still plan on watching it. Basically, it was a documentary on about how human beings treat animals, more specifically animals who we use either their meat or their fur or whatever for our own benefit, so to speak. But the way in which the humans were treating these animals was insanely cruel. They were comparing the way we treat animals to the way the Nazis treated the Jews in the Holocaust, which I find that to be a very good analogy, a very good comparison, because it is like that in a lot of ways, you know? We are the people who kill the animals and butcher them that way in such painful and excruciating ways are in ways not very different than the Nazis who did the very same to the Jews, if you think about it in a certain way. At least that's my perspective. You have the freedom to disagree with my opinion. I believe that the difficulty we all experience in extending our identification horizons in this way is itself genetic. Ants of one tribe will fight to the death intrusions by ants of another. Human history is filled with monstrous cases of small differences in skin pigmentation, or abstruse theological speculation, or manner of dress and hairstyle being the cause of harassment, enslavement, and murder. It being quite like us, but with a small physiological difference, a third eye, say, or blue hair covering the nose and forehead, somehow evokes feelings of revulsion. Such feelings may have had adaptive value at one time in defending our small tribe against the beasts and neighbors, but in our times, such feelings are obsolete and dangerous. Very well said. The time has come for respect, a reverence, not just for all human beings, but for all life forms, as we would have respect for a masterpiece of sculpture or an exquisitely tooled machine. This, of course, does not mean that we should abandon the imperatives for our own survival. Respect for the tenacious bacillus does not extend to volunteering our body as a culture medium, but at the same time we can recall that here is an organism with a biochemistry that tracks back deep into our planet's past. The tenacious bacillus is poisoned by molecular oxygen, which we breathe so freely. The tenacious bacillus, but not we, would be at home in the hydrogen-rich, oxygen-free atmosphere of primitive Earth. A reference for all life is implemented in a view of the religions of the planet Earth. For example, among the giants of India, and something like this idea is responsible for vegetarianism, at least in the minds of many practitioners of this dietary constraint. But why is it better to kill plants than animals? That's actually a really good question. I never really actually thought about that, but I never put a lot of thought into it. The idea has always been in the back of my head. So Carl Sagan answers this question for me. Human beings can survive only by killing other organisms. Wow, I actually thought about that not too long ago. Life feeds on life. But we can make ecological compensation by also growing other organisms. True. By encouraging the forests, by preventing the wholesale slaughter of organisms such as seals and whales. Imagine to have industrial or commercial value by outlawing gratuitous hunting and by making the environment of Earth more livable for all its inhabitants. I'm really liking this book. There may be a time, as I describe in part 3 of this book, when contact will be made with another intelligence on a planet of some far distant star, beings with billions of years of quite independent evolution, beings with no prospect of looking very much like us, although they may think very much like us. Yeah. It is important that we extend our identification horizons not just down to the simplest and most humble forms of life on our own planet, but also up to the exotic and advanced forms of life that may inhabit with us our vast galaxy of stars. That was very powerful, at least in my opinion. I was going to say something, I'm not entirely sure I remember anymore. But, oh yeah, I remember now. So, evolution. My theory on evolution. I think there eventually becomes a point in evolution where it's not so much about physical changes as it is about survival, because we've hit a point now where my cat's somewhere over there basically snoring. I don't know if you can hear that really, but basically we've hit a point in evolution where survival is a given. We are going to survive, and so there won't really be any more, at least in my opinion, evolutionary traits which we will develop over time for survival, because there's not like a for example, when a certain species of a certain trait survives over a certain species of another trait, because one species camouflages better with the ground than the other species, which might have colors and such which make it easily attractable towards the can't think of the word I'm trying to say. The predator. So we don't have any predators at this point anymore, you know what I mean? But evolution, I think, is going to be a lot more up here and in the spirit. And I think that in the near future, it is very possible there will be a spiritual evolution, in my opinion. In that fact, I think the next step in evolution is a spiritual evolution. I think a lot of that self-love and loving one another and identifying all life forms as sacred and holy and valuing life and all these things is a step in evolution. In fact, I think that love in general is a natural thing. I think it's natural for us to love one another, and I think it is unnatural for us not to. I think we are born loving, but not hating. That is just my opinion. Okay. Until next time, guys. Peace out.